Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we go to the Eastern Highlands to find a rare single malt, Dustin, the Glencadam 21 year.
It's the exceptional, Mike.
The exceptional 21 year comes in at 46% ABV. Dustin, tell us a little bit about it. It's your bottle.
Yeah, so sherry and bourbon, cask maturation. Obviously, based on color, I'm going to say very little on the sherry. This distillery's been getting a lot of hype recently. I think 2019 or 2018, I believe Ralphie gave their 15-year whiskey of the year, and it kind of disappeared from the market for a while.
Ralphie has good opinions.
He does, and
He will respond.
he definitely knows. Oh, he moves the market for sure. Also, recently, Telex, the whiskey tech, as well as our buddy Malt Muser, they both gotten a chance to review this bottle, and they spoke very, very highly of it. And this bottle, Mike, runs 100 pounds roughly.
Oh, reasonable price.
So very reasonable price for a 21-year-old. You know, everybody seemed to really enjoy the Aaron reviews we did recently. So I said, you know what? If I can get a 21-year-old whiskey from a distiller that's getting a lot of hype,
46%.
under $100 or for under $200,
Good deal.
that's a pretty good deal. Good for the channel. Probably good for my whiskey collection.
Here we go. Very, very light gold color.
Yeah.
Almost champagne-ish. Very, very light. So I would think the sherry cask maturation is very light in this thing, Dustin. Again, 46% ABV, Glencadam, 21-year-old, good, well-aged, single malt Scotch whiskey. I'm actually excited to get into it.
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
It's right off the bat, Mike. Vanilla, bubblegum, hint of banana green.
Okay, I was going to say instantly banana.
I'm glad. I was like, oh boy, Mike's going to tell me it's something else.
No, it's banana. You're right. It's banana, but it's waxy banana.
Even like a vanilla wafer type thing going on.
And there is some vanilla, you're right. Definitely bourbon cask flavors.
Yeah.
Typically when I say banana, I think of a young whiskey. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that 11-year-old Cleo, I got banana off that. It's rare that I get a banana off of something that is so old, but it's usually something out of a bourbon cask in general.
Yeah, and I'm getting on the finish, I am picking up a little bit of red fruits, telling me that, if you're saying sherry, then yep, there's a hint of it.
This smells incredibly waxy to me.
It's very clean though. This is a clean malt. There is no.
It's beeswax.
Definitely. I get that.
Maybe that's a twinge of like Neosporin or something, or some type of like petroleum jelly type note to it.
Petroleum jelly. Yeah, I mean, there is an oiliness to it that's impressive here. But it's so clean. I mean, I say waxy, and I start thinking of Klein Leash, which I don't think of as a dirty distillate, but it's much
Dirtier
more.
than
It's
this.
dirtier than this. This
For
is
sure.
This is doctor's office almost.
Clean. Well washed.
Yes. Like there is no flaws that got through into this whiskey, and that can be a very good thing.
Yeah, almost fresh, almost like Irish Spring soap.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, hey, I just fresh out of the bathroom. No, I didn't use anything scented either. I just went right out of the bathroom, just cleaned.
Yeah, there's nothing scented, just basic cleaners.
There is a little bit of barrel spice here, just a hint. You can pick up that it's got some age to it.
I tell you what, I don't get a lot of spice on the nose.
Again, it's not spice, but there's oak, and it's just adds a tinge. I mean, I'm talking. This is like 3 ppms.
Possibly.
In other words, it's 3 ppms worth of spice.
Maybe
I don't know if there's any peat in this one, guys, but I mean, it could be. I don't know.
I wouldn't say this is peated, but there is a wisp of wood smoke to it.
Yeah. Well, again, we've talked about this before. There's almost all distilleries have like 2 ppms.
Yeah, they've used the peat to dry the barley to some degree.
Yeah, they source the barley. There's a little bit of peat used in the drying process. And it comes through occasionally on these 21-year-olds. I don't pick up peat here, but there's a smoke, wisp of oak, something.
I think it's barrel smoke.
Yeah, and I think that's because it's 21 years old that we're getting that. I don't think you'd have picked that up on a 12-year from this distillery.
As we said many times, once you get into 20-plus-year-old whiskey, that is truly old Scotch whiskey. I think, again, that's probably, if I had to guess, that's what I would say it is. Now, you've had a chance to really kind of get into this bottle. This is my first time with it, so I'm at a bit of a disadvantage. However, aside from the notes we've already mentioned, there's something almost kind of green grassy, hayish note to it as well.
I can see that.
What are you picking up on the palate?
You nailed it with oily, viscous. I mean, this is one of the richest creamiest. I was about to use the word smooth, and when I really was like, wait a minute. It's got a creamy, viscous oiliness to the mouthfeel, which is surprising at 46. Getting a little bit of apple, getting some barrel spice, some caramel, believe it or not, which I don't associate very often with Scotch, but a little hint of caramel. That's really, there's not a lot here, but it's very well done, very assertive.
This is something that I think that if the distillery characteristic was more prominent or more dominant in the overall profile, it would easily come out. It almost feels like it's something that needs an additive to some kind. There's a lot of nice, subtle second and third degree notes in here. There's vanilla, there's light apple, maybe even a light pear. Nice sweetness. The oak spice is nice too, but the spice is very, very light. I almost feel like this needs an infusion of something to make it a little more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, part of me thinks that these casks could have gone 30, 40 years.
Easily. They're not dominating the spirit at all.
Yeah, I feel like they should have either chosen a few casks that had been a little more assertive and had just played a bigger role.
Sure.
And added, I don't know, let's say there's 50 casks that went into this one. If they'd added 5 casks that were a little more aggressive, I think that could have really added something here.
To make it interesting.
Yeah.
Again, this is a nice whiskey. This isn't an interesting whiskey.
Now, Mike, just to let you know, I have 3 more Glencadams that we'll get to. And they were all single casks, cask strength, most over 60%.
Wow.
And all finished.
Okay.
So we're going to get to see what Glencadam can do with a little more creativeness.
I'm excited because there's nothing off-putting here. It's
No,
not like
yeah.
I'm smelling something like, this is a little bit off. It's nice. It's just subtle, subdued.
Now, with water, Mike, I'm getting a little more like of a toast.
Toasted vanilla.
Yeah,
vanilla bean.
I'm getting a little bit of like rock candy.
I wouldn't quite go rock candy.
Well, it's a dirty rock candy, not the clean ones, not the clear ones.
I'd almost go Nestle's white chocolate bar.
I don't know that I've had that, but white chocolate actually that's a good descriptor. Because the rock candy kind of has gone away. You know how sometimes you smell something, you get it, and then you go back and it's kind of gone? I think the rock candy went away, and I think white chocolate.
White fudge?
Yeah, something like that, for sure.
I don't really get the rock candy. I don't get anything that sweet, that candy, that overall confectionery, artificial sweetness.
I find rock candy is a little less sweet for me usually than like a traditional sugar. And so I got just a hint of like a clean sweetness that was again, it's gone away. I can't find it now. Oh, there it is again. Yeah.
But the vanilla is overpowering to me.
Yeah.
It's almost like the first time I smelled a Macallan 21-year-old fine, I was like, man, this is just all vanilla.
I am getting a lot more of the oak now.
Vanilla fudge, vanilla oak.
I think the fudge there is the oak. The oak is adding kind of a fudginess to it.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I also, at the very end, I did get a slight bit of sour oak, just a hint.
I'm not really picking up anything sour here, but
There's just a twinge.
But the overall nosing profile is definitely hardcore vanilla in my opinion. Vanilla fudge, vanilla oak, vanilla, white chocolate, that sort of thing. I mean, I tell you what, actually, within a couple drops of water in here, the nose actually did become more interesting.
It did.
What do you pick on the palate with a couple drops?
Oak has come much, much more forward. And it's really adding a more of an aged feel. I still don't, go to this and think old whiskey when I'm drinking it. It's aged. It's well aged, but it's not coming off as old. And I've been working on that picking up old. For a long time, for example, found Glenfarclas 25 to not come off old. And nowadays I go back to it and I go, what was I thinking, man? Like I instantly pick up that's got some older whiskey in it. This, I would have guessed an 18-year-old potentially.
I agree. 16, 17, 18 years old, I would guess that. And
I think, again, these are not active casks, and this is an incredibly clean distillate.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's a combination of 3 things. I think it's a fairly clean distillate. It's my first time with it. Fairly clean distillate. On top of that, second, third, fourth full cast. They're not very active. They caress the whiskey very gently. And then just overall, just 21 years old, mellowed on any of the other harshness that would have possibly been there. So I would almost need to taste, I know this sounds silly, but a younger whiskey to kind of feel like what isn't there in this one that should be, from the more basic distillate. But again, it's a very
Yeah.
Nice whiskey. You know, it's like
Yeah.
a nice whiskey like a nice guy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You appreciate them when they're here, but when it's gone, you don't miss them.
Yeah. All right, Mike. I'll take this one first since this is your first time with it, and as you can see, guys, I've been going at this one fairly regularly because I've heard so many good things, and I wasn't quite getting what people were so excited about.
Yeah, different palates.
And I think going back and forth, I've been struggling between two numbers, and I'm going to go with the lower of the two, but it's very close. I should probably pull a mic and go with like a 0.75 or something, but I'm going to go 85.
Be a man.
I'm going to go 85 on this one. I was very close to 86. You know, it's an 85.75 if I were going to go there, but I'm staying in the 85 zone.
Yeah, this is a very nice whiskey. There's nothing off-putting. There's nothing that's very memorable about this whiskey.
I will not remember this distillery if one of my bottles are gone because, like, I couldn't pick this distillery out of the lineup.
If you told me this bottle was $100, but I'd pass on it just because there's nothing here that wows me. So that's kind of where I'm at. So that would put me at about an 82 out of 100.
Really?
It seems
Okay.
a bit light. I know.
See, look, the thing is, there's no flaws on it. That's where I kind of came back and said, it's got to be in that 85.
Hey, buddy, there's no flaws in water. You know what I'm saying? It's just there. That's kind of what I'm saying. This
It's got a pretty big flaw, and the mouth feels way too thin on water.
ABV is way too low.
Exactly. I don't think that's legal whiskey.
Maybe I'm being harsh. Initially, I was kind of thinking an 84, and then I got with water, and I was like, I really didn't make it any more interesting.
I think the water did enhance it a bit. Well, don't grade it as a 21-year-old whiskey. Just grade it as a whiskey.
82 out of 100. I did.
Fair enough. Yeah, guys, if you like a clean, classic Highland profile, this is probably it. But if you're looking for anything special or out there, you know, this might be a good whiskey for somebody who always finds a flaw in every Scotch and like, there's something I don't like about that.
I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with a delicate palate will gravitate to something like this. I don't have a delicate palate. No. I want something to wow me. I want something memorable.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You're talking about whiskey and someone brings up, hey man, what do you think of the Glencadam 21? What's your first thing you're going to say? Nice vanilla?
Honestly, I'm going to say it's a well-crafted whiskey that I don't think is going to impress you.
Agreed. 82 out of 100.
Yep.
That's where I'm at.
Fair enough. Like I said, this is definitely not one I'm going to give a high recommendation to. But again, if you're telling me you really like clean Highland whiskeys and you don't want to leave certain things, or maybe you're trying to transition somebody into whiskey drinking in general.
Oh, good transition whiskey right here. Yeah. No one's going to be offended by this whiskey.
Yeah.
Just I don't get being impressed.
Yeah. I will say this though. The one thing I will say is I still think it's got the best mouthfeel for 46%er I can think of right now off the top of my head. That's currently being made. Not going back to something from 20 years ago.
I don't know.
It's really creamy. It's really rich.
41% isn't really or 46 isn't my wheelhouse. I will say this though, the mouthfeel is driven by the fact that it's 21 years old.
Yeah, but I think this has got way more mouthfeel than a Macallan 21.
Fine, it's 3% higher of an ABV, but it doesn't have the tropical fruitiness of the Macallan 21. Yeah. It doesn't have the richness.
I think this has a better mouthfeel than the Balvenie 15 single barrels.
I disagree. But for another time, maybe we'll do a comparison between the Balvenie 15-year-old single barrel and this.
The 15 will kill this.
If you guys want us to do a comparison of those and the Macallan 21 and this, let us know. We have all those whiskeys. We'll be happy.
Down below.
We'll be happy to do that comparison if you'd like. Because we have a bunch of whiskeys and we like to talk about them.
Yeah.
Is that not right?
Absolutely.
And if there's one truth we will say, it is that. We have a bunch of whiskeys and we like to talk about them. Dustin.
We bore the hell out of people all the time talking whiskey.
Absolutely. Not just in whiskey, just in general life. You should see my girlfriend, she hates me. Dustin, we want to once again thank everyone for joining for another whiskey review. Let us know what you think in the comment section. Until Dustin, next time, we'll wish the folks.
Happy drinking.
See you then.